Welcome to State of the Offense Fantasy Football Talk for your favorite team's offense, the Las Vegas Raiders. The biggest stories surrounding the Raiders in the preseason are health of new quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo and the absence of Josh Jacobs from camp. The Raiders will bring back their entire starting offensive line from last year. Left tackle Kolton Miller was the best offensive lineman on the team with an 87 grade, and he played 93.6% of the snaps. Kolton Miller was the number 8 left tackle in the NFL. Left guard Dylan Parham played in all 17 games, graded at a 71, and he had a 93.7% snap share. His 71 grade placed him in the 19 to 20 range of starting left guards in football. Andre James graded at a 73 last year, and he played in 15 games with an 86.7% snap share. His 73 grade ranked him as the 18th best center in the game. James is in a contract year. Alex Bars played in 14 games with an 80.4% snap share, and he graded at a 67. Bars' 67 rated him in the bottom 5 of starting right guards in the league. Right tackle Jermaine Illuminor played in all 17 games and had an 84.4% snap share. Illuminor graded at a 73, which made him the 19th rated right tackle in the NFL. Illuminor's contract is also up after the season. The offensive line has some concerns going into the season. The future is uncertain because the Raiders may possibly have to replace 3 offensive linemen next year. Unless there is significant improvement in this group, the Raiders will have to infuse more talent into the offensive line. The Raiders decided to bring in Jimmy Garoppolo after they decided to let Derek Carr go after 9 years. Jimmy played under coach Josh McDaniels in New England, and he's probably a better fit for what the coach wants from the position. In fantasy football, Garoppolo and Carr produced very similarly. Carr was the 22nd quarterback in points per game, and Garoppolo was the 23rd quarterback in average points per game. Jimmy's biggest advantage is that he limits his mistakes and he keeps his team in the game. His biggest flaw is his injury history. Derek Carr missed only 2 games in his first 8 years, but his weakness has been year-to-year consistency. Jimmy is going as the quarterback 23 drafted in fantasy football, and he's the 135th player taken overall. He is my quarterback 25, but he's my 123rd player overall. The Raiders bring back 3-time All-Pro wide receiver Davante Adams for his second year with the franchise. In 2022, Adams finished the year as the wide receiver 2 in total points and the wide receiver 3 in average points per game. His first year without Aaron Rodgers seemed to make no difference, but Rodgers certainly missed Adams in Green Bay. Davante is getting drafted as the wide receiver 6 and as the 13th player taken overall. I agree with the wide receiver 6 rating, but I actually rank Adams as my 11th player overall. My biggest concern with Adams and the Raiders offense in general is the drop-off at quarterback if the Raiders have to play Brian Hoyer. Otherwise, this is one of the safest picks you can make in the first round. The Raiders brought in Jakobi Meyers from New England in free agency to be the number 2 wide receiver. As the Patriots' top option last year, Meyers was the wide receiver 31 in points per game. I would expect his fantasy value to drop with having to play the number 2 role to Davante Adams. Meyers is the wide receiver 47 drafted and the 97th pick overall. He is my wide receiver 44 and my 111th player drafted. I think there is more downside to Meyers than there is potential. Hunter Renfrow fell off a bit after an outstanding 2021 season. Renfrow only played in 10 games and he received very little attention with a top flight option like Davante Adams around. Renfrow should only be considered for a roster spot if one of the top 2 Raider wide receivers gets hurt. The Raiders got a lot of production over the years from Darren Waller at the tight end position. His trade to the New York Giants came as a bit of a surprise because of what the Giants paid to get him. Waller has been hampered with injuries, so moving on was in the Raiders' best interest. In the short term, the Raiders will use Austin Hooper, who was signed away from the Tennessee Titans in free agency, and in the long run, they hope that second-round draft pick Michael Mayer from Notre Dame becomes the eventual replacement. Tight end is a pretty important position in this offense. Mayer might be on your roster later in the year as a waiver wire add. His value goes up once he surpasses Hooper on the depth chart. The Raiders and Josh Jacobs have not been able to agree on a contract going into training camp. Jacobs still hasn't reported to the team. In 2022, he led the NFL in rushing, and he had a combined 404 carries and targets. He was the running back 3 in points scored and the running back 4 in average points. He is the running back 8 in draft position and the 17th player getting taken overall. With this situation about his contract, it is hard to tell if he's going to be worth a second-round draft pick when draft day comes. As his holdout extends, his value drops because it is hard for a player to get ready for the NFL without game preparation. I usually don't mess around with these situations, so I have Josh Jacobs to my running back 17 and my number 47 overall player. Zamir White has the most upside of the backups. If White is going to be the week 1 starter, try to stash him as your running back 4 or your running back 5 on your fantasy roster. I think this offense will struggle to score points. Davante Adams is top rate, but what if Josh Jacobs misses more time? Michael Mayer is probably going to emerge as a solid tight end option by the end of the season, but everyone else is just average otherwise. I'm not a strong supporter of Josh McDaniels as an NFL head coach. He now has his players who will do it his way, so it remains to be seen if it will equate to wins. A completely healthy year for Jimmy Garoppolo is an absolute necessity for the Raiders to score points. Brian Hoyer is not as good as what Jarrett Stidham and Marcus Mariota were as backup quarterbacks. I have a hard time seeing the Raiders having a winning season. I can see a rough year ahead in a very strong AFC West. If you like today's coverage of the Raiders offense, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel.